It's a new year and that means a new army for me, and I'm going with my all-time favorite, the Bretonnians. In this video I'll be showing you how I paint a first Knight of Bretonnia, which is a champion for a Knights of the Realm unit. And I'll be painting him in the colors of Mousillon, in the service of Duke Maldred, the last recognized Duke of Mousillon, set in the old world. Also in this video I'll be going through my philosophy and ideas about how to build a Bretonnian armies. I have a ton of do and don'ts when it comes to Bretonnians. And I'll go over that and some lore in this video as well. But other than that, grab your brush and let's get painting. I have separated the knight from his horse and undercoated them in Wraithbone. And if you're wondering what's going on with the base here, it's because I'm trying to achieve a muddy autumn base, like the one I have right here. And if you want to know how I've made this, I have a dedicated video for that. But anyways, I'll begin by painting the horse, and I've cut off the grass because I think it looks much cooler without it, and it has more dynamic pose. And for the horse you can do whatever color you want really, but I'm going with anything but white, because I'm reserving white for my Grail Knight units. And also I'm giving my Grail Knight horses Pegasus heads, so they look more menacing. But let's get painting, and I'm giving some credit to War Hipster here, because I was inspired by him for this recipe for the horse flesh. And I'm beginning by adding 4 parts Cygor Brown to my palette. Like so. And then I'm going to clean my brush. And then I'll mix it with 2 parts Lahmian Medium. And for the heraldry I'm primarily going with blue with some white fleur-de-lis, just as the heraldry shows for Mousillon. But for now I'm adding this mix all over the flesh of the horse. And yeah, at the time of the old world setting, Mousillon is not yet really a cursed place. It still has an official Duke, Duke Maldred. He will be, unbeknownst to him, the last official Duke, but that's in the future, when you're in the old world setting. He will be responsible later on for the False Grail affair, which leads Bretonnia into a civil war, and forever curses the name Mousillon. But once again, that's in the future. My army will be led by Duke Maldred, and I plan on each knight having his own individual heraldry. However, all the banners and characters and unit champions will carry the colors of Mousillon, to symbolize that they are being led by this Duke. The same with the shields for the men-at-arms and so on. The peasants will carry the colors of Mousillon. The paint has been applied and I'm waiting for it to dry. Meanwhile, I can talk about how I often feel that the Bretonnian Knights look too much alike. Only Questing Knights does really stand out, and the Grail Knights only really have cloaks to differentiate them. But I'm trying to, like I said before, give my Grail Knights steeds some Pegasus heads, and my Knight Errants will not be wearing any helmets because they want to show off who they are in front of all the damsels. So it's just really the Knights of the Realm who looks like proper knights. Also, all my Knights of the Realm will be given a shoulder shield. I don't know what you call it, but it is what it is. My Knight Errants and other knights won't be wearing that. And for my peasantry, I haven't decided quite yet, but I consider using some streaking grime, which is essentially grimdark in a bottle, to make them look, well, dirty and disgusting compared to their noble counterparts. Also, there are some things I won't include in my army, such as Knights of the Realm on foot. I have no clue how good or bad they are in the game, but for me, a proper knight will never leave his steed. Except in the case of a siege or something, but no, a knight he belongs on a horse. I do believe I read this quote by King Louis Leoncoeur that what is a knight without his steed? But what is a steed without the knight? Knight and steed, noble and peasant. Of such relationship is Bretonnia built. And I kinda agree with him, that's how Bretonnia should be. You want your nobles on horseback and your peasants running around in the mud and filth.
Never gonna be any progress.
There's some lovely filth down here! Oh!
So that's what I'm going for in my army. Next up I'm adding some Cygor Brown once again, but this time without diluting it. I'm adding it all over the hair, which means the socks and the tail. Just straight from the pot. With all that applied, I'm then adding a shade of Seraphim Sepia all over the flesh. And then I'm giving it about 20 minutes to dry fully before continuing. And as you can see, I'm just adding it straight from the pot. With the shade dry, I'm then going in with a little bit of black Templar contrast and adding it to the lower half of the legs. This is to simulate socks. So once it's applied, I'm then going to quickly wash my brush, make sure it's damp, and then blend in to the brown areas. Like so. And I'm going to do this on all four legs. Following that, I'm then going in some Black Legion and painting all the hooves. I know many like to paint the hooves in bone colors, but I looked at some pictures online of, well, hooves, and I found that many of them are indeed black or blackish. So that's what I'm going for. The teeth, however, will not be black, so here I'm going in with a base coat of Ushabti Bone. I thinned it down a bit with water. Also, I went in with some Wraithbone and fixed most of the mistakes I've made so far off cam. So we are ready to proceed. With that Ushabti Bone applied, I'm then adding some Seraphim Sepia to give it some texture and such definition. With that shade dry, I'm then going in with the happy little highlight of Screaming Skull. And I'm also picking out the eyes afterwards with this color. Next I'm grabbing some Leadbelcher and painting anything I want to be steel, such as the horseshoes, the armor, and those shields scattered around on the horse. The Leadbelcher has been applied, so now I'm shading it all down with some Nuln Oil. And give it enough time to dry so we can finish it off with a highlight. And as promised, I'll finish off the steel with a highlight. The color I'm going for is Ironbreaker. And when applying a highlight, whenever you can, use the side of your brush for much better control. Like this. Next up I'm painting the gold, and there is only really this decoration on the head. But I'm giving it a base coat of Retributor Armour. Then just let it dry and we can shade it afterwards. Following that, I'm adding some Reikland Fleshshade straight from the pot. I know that Reikland Fleshshade is really intended for flesh, human flesh and such, but it goes very well with any golden color. With the shade dry, I'm then going in with a layer of Liberator Gold, which I've thinned down with water. This is to brighten it back up a bit. Just avoid the recesses and apply this all over the gold. And finally, with a bit of Stormhost Silver, which I've also thinned down, I'm adding a highlight. Next up is all the leather, and I'm starting with the saddle, which I'm giving a base coat of Thondia Brown. I might need a couple of coats for this to cover perfectly. And yes, I'm just painting the saddle, not the rest of the leather at this stage. With all that Thondia Brown applied, I'm then adding a shade of Nuln Oil all over the saddle. And lastly, I'm adding a highlight of Skrag Brown to the saddle and calling it complete. Then we can move on to the rest of the leather. And as you can see, I'm still using the side of my brush. The rest of the tackle and leather will be quite simple. I'm just going in straight from the pot with some Cygor Brown contrast paint. Of course, I'm being careful not to hit any unwanted areas, like the ones we've already painted. Just nice and easy, and once you're done, we can move on to the next stage of this model. And next I'm putting the horse aside for a moment, and I promise you we will get to the heraldry very soon. Next I'm taking a look at our first knight here. And I'm going to be painting all the steel on this guy first, and there's no reason to film it because I'm using the exact same recipe as I did for the horse, except after a base coat of Leadbelcher and a shade of Nuln Oil, and then going back to Leadbelcher to add a layer and then highlight with Ironbreaker. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll be right back. With all that steel applied, I'm then going to paint the gold, and there really isn't that much. I'm going to paint the hilt of his sword and those small shields on his other sword and his dagger. And I'm going with a base coat of Retributor Armour, a shade of Reikland Fleshshade, then a layer of Liberator Gold and a highlight of Stormhost Silver, just like we just did on the horse. I'll be right back. Alright, the gold has been applied and there's no avoiding it anymore. It's time to talk about heraldry. Before I begin painting the heraldry on my Knight of the Realm, I want to talk a little about my thought process when choosing colors for any of my knights. But before I say anything, it's important for me to underscore that you should do whatever you want to do with your own Bretonnian army. It's your hobby, it's your miniatures, it's your money. Go ahead and paint up an entire army of female knights clad in green heraldry if that's what you're into. You're still awesome for collecting Bretonnians. Now, with that said, please look at this official map of Bretonnia. Look at the heraldry. What do you notice? No Bretonnian knight, according to the law, mind you, wears any color outside of the primary colors. So red, blue, yellow, black and white is what's allowed in Bretonnian society, and that's the rule I'm sticking to with my own army. Of course, I can use different shades of blue, red, etc., but no purple, brown, and especially not green. The color green is reserved for the Green Knight. He is called the Green Knight and not a Green Knight after all. To further support this, you won't find any official Games Workshop picture of a Bretonnian Knight painted in green. They were prior to 6th edition Warhammer Fantasy, but not anymore. Heraldry underwent a big change when Bretonnia jumped from 5th to 6th edition. The symbols on a knight's heraldry in 5th edition showcase heroic deeds performed by the individual knight. Today the symbol shows which dukedom the knight hails from. Bleu-de-Lis means a knight hails from Mousillon, for example. To support my claim even further, we have the novel Knight Errant, written by Anthony Reynolds, the author of the 6th edition Bretonnian Army book. In that book, we meet an imperial nobleman who is visiting Bretonnia. In one scene, he takes on a green scarf and is laughed at by a group of Bretonnian nobles. He doesn't understand why they are laughing at him, and someone then explains to him that green is a cheap color to produce and thus is reserved for the peasantry. In an interview with Anthony Reynolds, he told the series of novels about Bretonnia was his opportunity to show life as he imagined it in Bretonnia, and also showcase all the different units found in the Bretonnian army roster. Again, you should most definitely paint your own Bretonnians however you see fit. I've just chosen to stick with these rules myself. All my knights will get their own individual heraldry set within these rules. Now, back to the painting table. The heraldry of Mousillon is pretty much just blue with some white fleur-de-lis, so I'm keeping white to an absolute minimum. So I'm starting with a contrast paint, Talassar Blue, which I'm painting all over the heraldry, including the shield and everything. Also on the inside. And with that our knight is, well, blue. And the only things I'm painting white later on is all the fleur-de-lis on the miniature and this part right here. Next I've added some Ultramarines Blue and contrast medium in an equal measure to my palette. I've taken 3 drops of each, and I'll add more if I need it later on. And this I'm applying all over in the same way as before. So yes, just all over the Talassar Blue. Like so. Alright, the second layer of contrast paint has been applied, and if you enjoy this color, leave it as it is and jump right to the next stage where we are applying a highlight. But I want to fix all those blotches I've made. I'm sure you haven't any because you're a perfect painter, but I'm not. So what I'm doing next is adding a glaze of Teclis Blue. I've taken 1 drop to my palette and added 4 drops of water. And then I'm just applying this all over the blue once again. It can be quite runny, so be careful it doesn't pool in the recesses. But this will tint it and help cover up those blotches. To finish off the blue heraldry, I'm then adding a highlight of Lothern Blue. I've mixed it with an equal amount of water on my palette. So just go around all the edges and as always use the side of your brush whenever possible. With that highlight applied, I'm calling the blue heraldry done. Next I'm going to paint all the white details. There aren't many, but there are a few. And as you can see, I have taken some Wraithbone off cam and painted a thin line around those shields to make them stand out more. But to paint the white, I'm starting with a contrast paint, Apothecary White. And just apply this around here. But it's primarily on the knight, such as here, here, and all the fleur-de-lis as well. Just take your time and be careful. And following that contrast, I'm then adding a layer of Corax White, which I have thinned down. Always thin down your paints. So just all over and avoid the recesses. And to finish off the white, I'm adding a highlight of white scar. With the blue and white heraldry complete, there are only a few details left on this model to paint. I'm starting with the backside of his shield, where I'm adding some Cygor Brown. Following that, I'm painting the antlers on the knight, and I do realize that your model might not have antlers, so I'll go through this briefly. And if you don't, just skip ahead to the next subject I'm painting. But I'm starting with a contrast paint of Skeleton Horde. Straight from the pot. With the contrast paint dry, I'm then adding a dry brush of Corax stone, very gently. And I'll finish it off with a highlight of Screaming Skull. And for all the leather on the knight, I'm going with Gorgrunter Fur, which is a contrast paint. And I'm adding it here, here, on his straps, and also his dagger and sword sheath. Like so. While the Gorgrunter Fur is still drying, I'm then painting the handles of his weapons with Volupus Pink. Going back to the horse for a little moment, I'm taking some Ironbreaker and picking out all these nits, or whatever you call them, on the leather. And then, with a tiny amount of Abaddon Black, I'll add a dot to the center of the horse's eyes. The painting stage of this miniature is pretty much complete, but what I'll do next is add some transfers, and I'm not going to film that here because I already have a dedicated video for that, link in the description. So I'll do that and be right back. The transfers has been applied, and I've also painted the base. And I'm really pleased with how he turned out. The very last thing I would like to do is add some Typhus Corrosion. And what I'm doing is I've taken an old base coat brush from Citadel and cut off the brush. So we have this flat, well, brush. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this Typhus Corrosion, dab this inside, and just like a dry brush, I'll wipe most of it off on tissue, and then stipple it on the bottom here to make it look like it's been through the mud. And you can do as much or as little as of this as you want. And once you're happy, the model is complete. Oh, and do remember that sometimes less is more. It's easier to add paint than it is to remove it. So be careful with this stage. And thus is our first knight ready to ride into battle. I hope you found this painting tutorial interesting, and if you want to copy at home, please share it on Instagram and tag me at Stender Painting. Also, if you're building Bretonnians yourself, I'm very curious. What philosophy goes into your army? How do you build it? Just however you want, or do you follow some certain rules like I do, or maybe a third thing altogether? Please share in the comments. And with that, for the lady.
Let Artois rise and Baston call. Let knights of Carcassonne not fall. Through blood and mud, through fire's kiss,